Allen & Company wishes OOIDA and all members a safe, healthy, and joyous holiday season.
OOIDA, representing America's truckers since 1973, presents Landline Now with your host, Mark Redding.
It seems as if every time we get used to a regulation, some additional change or new regulation is added. Currently, we're tracking a change to the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse, and it could have a significant effect on a large number of truck drivers. I'll discuss what's happening with Taylor Ritchie and Joe Boswell of OOIDA's Drug Testing Consortium, CMCI. The claims process after an incident can take a long time, but video footage can speed that process up and save you some money. Landline Now senior correspondent Ashley Blackford sits down with Trina Skywalker and Lisa Waskey of OOIDA's Truck Insurance Department to discuss dash cams and the benefits of having one in your truck. And finally, we've entered the era of artificial intelligence. Like any new thing that comes along, the bad guys have found ways to use it for their benefit. Aaron Phillips and Tim Storhoff of OOIDA's IT department join Landline Now news anchor Scott Thompson to break down how cyber criminals are using AI to scam people out of money and what you can do to protect yourself. But first, the news with Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Mark. Our top story today: the national average for a gallon of diesel down for a second straight week. The Energy Information Administration says the average dipped nearly 4 cents to $3.53 a gallon. Every region on the EIA survey saw prices drop last week, save for New England, where the average remained flat. Meanwhile, more of the same this week so far. ProMiles.com had the Tuesday morning average at $3.50 a gallon, down 2.5 cents from the same day last week. The U.S. Department of Transportation is one step closer to implementing oral fluid testing for its transportation drug and alcohol testing programs after some back-and-forth proposals dating back to May of last year and more time to consider potential consequences. The U.S. DOT has published a final rule that goes into effect on December 5th. It comes with some changes. They include providing temporary qualification requirements for mock oral fluid monitors, providing for consistent requirements by identifying which individuals may be present during an oral fluid collection, and clarifying how collectors should document that a sufficient volume of oral fluid was collected. The DOT says the final rule is not intended to replace current collection methods, but simply to provide an alternative. The process will continue to play out over time. Even after the rule goes into effect next month, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services will need to certify laboratories to conduct the oral fluid testing. As of last month, the agency had yet to certify a single lab to do that. The legal battle over California's Assembly Bill 5 continues. The latest development, a response brief from the state to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. It follows an appeal filed in August by the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. In its response brief, California defends its worker classification law, AB 5, which requires a business to demonstrate that 3 factors are established before a worker can be considered an independent contractor. While OOIDA contends that AB 5's ABC test places an undue burden on truckers who work in interstate commerce, the state of California argues that the association is overstating the changes involved in reclassifying a leased owner-operator as an employee. The state said the only consequence under California law is that motor carriers will be required to provide owner-operators with certain benefits and protections, such as a minimum wage, workers' compensation, unemployment insurance, and sick leave. However, opponents of AB 5 argue that the shift from owner-operator to employee means they will have to cede control and flexibility over their work. Long story short, the legal process continues to play out. OOIDA is now tasked with writing and submitting a reply brief. That's due on November 25th. The Environmental Protection Agency has announced nearly $250 million for a project that will add electric truck chargers along the I-95 corridor out east. The money will be used by the Clean Corridor Coalition, which will establish 24 freight truck charging sites with 450 charging ports across Connecticut, Delaware, Maryland, and New Jersey. The Federal Highway Administration has announced another $635 million in funding for bridge improvements across the country. This funding for bridge projects in rural and urban areas in nearly 20 states is part of the $40 billion dedicated to improving America's bridges through the bipartisan infrastructure law. More than 11,000 bridges are being rebuilt, repaired, or modernized through the legislation. To date, the Federal Highway Administration says $8.1 billion has been invested in 100 bridge projects across 44 states. An undeveloped rest area used as truck parking in Iowa is being shut down for the winter. The Iowa Department of Transportation said the rest area off southbound Interstate 35 in Warren County is mostly used by motor carriers, but because the ramp leaving the rest area is on an incline, the Iowa DOT says large vehicles often have trouble getting traction to merge during winter weather, causing a dangerous situation on the roadway. The rest area will close on November 18th. It's set to reopen in late April. A stretch of Interstate 74 through eastern Illinois is being shut down Tuesday night for repairs. The Illinois Department of Transportation says about 1.5 miles of westbound I-74 in Vermilion County will shut down at 9 p.m. All lanes are scheduled to reopen by 5:30 Wednesday morning. A detour utilizing US 150 will be posted. Expect delays. And finally, public voting is now open for the 2024 Transition Trucking Driving for Excellence Award. The annual award goes to a veteran who's made the successful transition into trucking. 4 finalists are up for the honor this year. The winner gets a brand new fully loaded Kenworth T680. The runner-up gets $10,000, and the remaining finalists each get $5,000. Public voting is open through November 11th. After that, a selection committee will complete its review, and the winner will be honored as part of the Veterans Ready Summit in Washington, D.C. on December 13th. For more information, check out our write-up on landline.media. That's Landline Now News for today. I'm Scott Thompson.
Thanks, Scott. Congratulations to Lawrence L. Gerhardt of Tucson, Arizona. He's received the OOIDA Safe Driving Award for 29 years of safe, accident-free driving. That's the equivalent of a car driver going 218 years without causing a single accident. The OOIDA Safe Driving Award program is sponsored by Shell Rotella. And if you're interested in receiving the Safe Driving Award, you can find a link to more information at our website, landlinenow.com. Again, that website, landlinenow.com. Marty Ellis and OOIDA's tour truck, The Spirit of the American Trucker, are at the TA Truck Stop in Denmark, Tennessee. That's located at Exit 68 on Interstate 40. Stop in, say hi to Marty, and join OOIDA for a $10 discount. The OOIDA Foundation is accepting applications for the OOIDA Mary Johnston Scholarship. The scholarship is available to any qualified child, grandchild, or legal dependent of an OOIDA member. You can find more information or apply at the association's website, OOIDA.com. Go to the main menu at the top left of the page and under Foundation, click on Scholarship Program. Again, that's at OOIDA.com. The deadline is February 1st. Do you have a news tip? Maybe you have a comment about something you heard on the air, or maybe you just have a question about something happening in the trucking industry. Email us at landlinenow@OOIDA.com. You can write a letter to your elected officials in Congress or look up contact information for lawmakers who represent you on the state and federal level by using the website fightingfortruckers.com. Again, that's at fightingfortruckers.com. OOIDA is seeking the names and addresses of military personnel serving overseas so we can send them care packages through Truckers for Troops. Call that information in to Nikki Johnson at 816-229-5791 or email it to troops@OOIDA.com. Next, I'll discuss upcoming changes to drug and alcohol regulations with Taylor Ritchie and Joe Boswell of the Drug Testing Consortium, CMCI. Ashley Blackford finds out why you should have a dash cam from Trina Skywalker and Lisa Waskey of OOIDA's Truck Insurance Department. And Scott Thompson covers the dangers of AI with Aaron Phillips and Tim Storhoff of OOIDA's IT Department. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
Running on ultra-low sulfur diesel? Stay protected this winter with Howe's Diesel Treat and Diesel Lifeline. Steer clear of gel and ice with North America's #1 trusted brand. Find Howe's products nationwide at select retailers, auto parts stores, truck stops, and on Amazon.com.
When it's time to overhaul your truck engine, help protect it by insisting on a genuine Vibertech TVD crankshaft damper. Heavy duty, absolute premium quality, and they're made right here in the USA. Find a dealer at vibertechtvd.com.
Truckdown.com. Whenever you have a breakdown, you need Truckdown.com. 24/7 access to 40,000 verified heavy-duty repair vendors nationwide. Owner-operators need roadside speed. Truckdown.com.
It's tested and proven. Burn 2.1% less fuel when you balance all wheel ends with Centromatic. Call 800-523-8473 to get the OOIDA discount.
Landline now. Welcome back. It seems as if every time we get used to a new regulation, some additional change or new regulation is added, and often drivers get caught in the crosshairs. Currently, we're tracking a change to the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse and its effect on drivers, and it could have a significant effect on a number of truckers. Here to fill us in are Taylor Ritchie and Joe Boswell of OOIDA's Drug Testing Consortium, CMCI. Hey, thank you both for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
So we've got a situation where a number of truckers have been placed in what they call prohibited status. I'm wondering if we can start with kind of a number. How many truckers nationwide are in this status right now in the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse?
As of September 1st, we have 177,092 drivers in prohibited status.
Okay. And when we say prohibited status, I'm sure that for folks who are in it, they've got a pretty good idea. But for folks that aren't familiar with that term, what does that mean?
Well, it specifically means that they're prohibited from performing safety-sensitive functions. You know, if they're driving a commercial motor vehicle that's over 26,001 pounds, hazmat, 16-passenger buses, whatever. At that point, if it's been reported to the clearinghouse that they failed to test, they are no longer eligible to drive. And it's been that way, ever since the clearinghouse started.
And it's a pretty significant number right now, isn't it?
Yes, that's a lot of people. I mean, the clearinghouse is effective.
Okay. Now, for those who perhaps have not dealt with it yet or don't fully understand it, I'm wondering if you can kind of give us an idea of what the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse is and what function it serves.
So Clearinghouse is an online database. It's to show any kind of previous testing violation, so a positive or refusal, and it gives employers real-time access to see that information if a driver is prohibited or not from performing those safety-sensitive functions.
So basically, any information on your drug testing history, it's all in there.
That is correct.
So going carrier to carrier, I think we did have situations where people tried to do that in previous years. That's no longer possible with the clearinghouse. Trying to avoid their drug testing history by going carrier to carrier.
Yes. The employer is responsible for running a query on a driver, and that query is essentially a check that they're doing on the CDL to show that prohibited or not prohibited status, and if it is in either of those statuses, whether there is a current violation out there or if it's been taken care of.
Okay.
And in fact, they're not supposed to put a driver on the road until they do conduct a query. They have to know what that driver's status is before, for a new hire, they have to know.
And that's very important, and I want to kind of get into that a little bit here. Obviously, everybody involved in actual trucking has got to have some involvement with the clearinghouse. And I want to start out with the individual trucker. Let's say a company driver or someone who is leased onto a carrier. What do they need to do in relationship to the clearinghouse?
Well, they have to get registered. So whether it's a hired driver or it's a leased on owner-operator, they both go to the clearinghouse website and choose to get registered as drivers. The leased on owner-operator, to that motor carrier is based. They have to treat him like, any other driver they have. He just happens to own his own tractor. And so there's a different relationship. But owner-operators, leasing on, hired drivers, they have to get registered as drivers so that they can provide their consent to release their clearinghouse information over to the motor carrier that they're applying to drive for.
And I recall that. Now, do they have to release their information each time they apply with a motor carrier? Or is this just a one-time deal?
It's each motor carrier. Each motor carrier is required to conduct a full, for pre-employment purposes, query on new hires.
Now, that's where this can get confusing for people who are on their own authority, where you're both the driver and the motor carrier. And I think some people look at that and they kind of get a little confused because it's me.
Right.
But you do have to do both sides of this, don't you?
Yeah, that's correct. As an owner-operator, you kind of wear multiple hats. You wear the employer hat, and then you also have your driver hat. So within the clearinghouse, you do have to be registered as both employer and driver, and you run the queries on yourself as well.
So let's get back to this situation with the prohibited status. And I think you said 177,000, am I correct? A very significant number of people right now that are on prohibited status. So once you're in that situation, what do you have to do in order to get back on the road? What is your process?
Well, you got to start the return to duty process. And in fact, it needs to start pretty quickly these days. But the first step is you got to go see a counselor, an SAP, a substance abuse professional. And you make arrangements with the SAP and go through whatever training or education that counselor, that SAP puts you through. And at some point, it's the SAP that determines that you are eligible for a return-to-duty test. And it's the SAP that has to change your eligibility in the clearinghouse. So you talk about the different entities that have to be registered with the clearinghouse, and SAPs are one of them. Because they have to go, the driver has to go into their clearinghouse account, designate their SAP. SAP goes in there and updates it, and when the time's right, makes them eligible for a return-to-duty test.
So right now, again, going back to that figure, 177,000 drivers that are on prohibited status, do we know at this point how many of those have yet to start that process, who have not started the process yet?
As of September 1st, we have 134,779 drivers that have yet to start this process.
That's an amazing number. Is that typical? And what we mean here is when someone ends up with some kind of violation, do they typically undergo the return to duty process or not?
If they want to drive,
well, certainly that, but
well, they have to. So, if they're gonna change their profession, okay, then don't do it. But if they want to drive, they have to do it.
But it seems like we've got a majority here that are not doing that. So it looks like, at least in this case, more common than not that these people are like, yeah, I don't want to deal with that.
Well, things are about to change. I mean, they've been, when you had a positive and it got reported to the clearinghouse in the past or up to now, they really didn't affect your CDL. You were simply prohibited from driving, and nothing happened to your CDL. But that's changing.
Okay, well, let's talk about that, because that is a big deal here. And this is something I had read about previously in some of the other coverage, that the FMCSA has got coming in what they call the Clearinghouse 2 rule. And this is going into effect this month on November 18th. So let's talk about what that means. What is the Clearinghouse 2 rule?
Clearinghouse 2 is when a driver gets in that prohibited status, their CDL or CLP, their permit, will be downgraded. This essentially just means that they will no longer have a valid CDL if they stay in that prohibited status after the November 18th date.
So once you've got your CDL downgraded, how do you get back to work at that point?
Well, you've got, like I said before, you got to start that. You got to go see an SAP. So the process is you got to go see a counselor, because it's the counselor, the SAP, that's going to determine you're eligible for a return to duty test. So that's the first thing you do. So you have to find a counselor and start the process.
Then you need to do your return to duty test. Once you're eligible to do that return to duty test and that result comes back negative, you want to make sure that gets reported into the clearinghouse. And then you would need to check in with your state to see how to reinstate your CDL at that point.
You mentioned finding the counselor, Joe, and I think that that's a significant thing. Is this something you would typically do through either your employer's drug testing program or if you're on your own through your drug testing consortium? Can they provide that?
Well, the main source for that to find an SAP is that the website is saplist.com. So saplist.com.
Okay. And that's definitely something we'll put on our website so folks can look that up later. So you don't go through your consortium, you don't go through your employer, you go straight to that.
It is the employer's responsibility to give the drivers at least qualified SAPs. But CMCI does recommend using the saplist.com website to find a counselor near that driver.
Okay. We've got a little bit of time left here. And just, again, we always like to remind people of things that we've told them before because people have short memories and there's a lot of regulations they have to follow. So I'm wondering if we can go over the basic rules that truckers have to follow under the drug and alcohol testing rules. What can they do? What can they not do in terms of drug and alcohol use?
Well, pretty common. If you want to drive a truck, don't do drugs.
Right. But I know, for example, alcohol, I think people think of the rules for passenger car drivers. They're tighter for truckers, aren't they?
Oh, I suppose so. It's pretty strict. You don't want to have any alcohol around your commercial motor vehicle at all. So it's a pretty zero tolerance. But no, you can't drink before you start. Before you go on duty, while you're on duty, or then you could be checked, after you come off duty. So, that's pretty much the same. All the thing that's different now is it does get reported to the clearinghouse, and drivers can't jump from state to state, get a different CDL. One of the things that I appreciate about the clearinghouse is that those guys, when you go to a new employer, they have to run a query in the clearinghouse.
Now, when you are called in for a test, I know that there's testing after accidents. There's also random testing. The testing after accidents seems pretty obvious. If you're in a DOT reportable accident, you're going to get tested. What about the random? How does that work?
Well, regulation states that they need to report immediately. Once they're notified of a test, a driver should report immediately to that test. If they're unable to go, they need to communicate with their employer and their DERs and provide documentation as to what's going on. Ultimately, it's up to that employer to determine if it's a refusal or not. But I mean, if you get called to go in, you got to go in once that employer tells you about the test.
I tell our motor carriers, we deal with a lot of owner-operators, independent one-truck shops, and maybe they're going to hire a new driver. There's three things you got to do to satisfy the drug and alcohol regulations. The first thing you got to do is clear the driver's name in the Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse. And if that comes back and says driver not prohibited, good to go, then you do a DOT pre-employment drug test to make sure you got proof right now that the driver's drug-free. And the moment you put that driver on a public road with your DOT number on the side of that truck, that's the moment you got to have them enrolled in a random testing program.
Okay. And the prohibited substances, I mean, we could go over here. There's basically, as you said, Joe, don't do drugs, and you're probably okay. But I know, for example, we have a problem with people because so many states have legalized the use of marijuana that think, oh, my state makes it okay, so it's just okay. And it's not, is it?
It's not. No, they got a federal license. It's issued by the states. It's a federal license. It's still prohibited. And they got to be careful with that CBD oil and different topicals that you put on your knees and whatever. That gets people in trouble because it's got THC in it.
Yep, got to be careful. Well, that's all the time we have, but I want to thank you both very much for all the information.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've been talking with Taylor Ritchie and Joe Boswell of CMCI, OOIDA's Drug Testing Consortium. Once again, that website that Joe and Taylor mentioned is saplist.com. Just go to the dark blue button that says Find a SAP. Once that page loads, you can enter your address and find substance abuse professionals within a 10-mile radius of your home, or you can increase that distance if needed to find an SAP. In addition, on the left side of the page, under For Employees, you can find answers to frequently asked questions about drug and alcohol testing. We'll be back in just a moment with more news and information. Please stay with us. I'm Mark Reddick, and this is Landline Now.
Are you tired of the IRS following you around like a dark cloud? Call 888-557-4020 and get your life back.
At Truck Stop, we built a better load board for carriers like you. Sign up today and access over 600,000 loads on the most trusted online load board. Learn why the best in the business rely on Truck Stop to make more money and start driving your profit today.
Landline Now. Welcome back. Like tires, fuel, and an engine, insurance is one of those things you just have to have for your truck. But not all insurance is created equal. Ashley Blackford is here with the experts from OOIDA's Truck Insurance Department to answer some questions.
Thanks, Mark, and hello to Trina Skywalker and Lisa Waskey with OOIDA's Insurance Department. How are you doing today, ladies?
Great. Thank you.
Today we are talking about dash cams. I want to start by asking, how beneficial can a dash cam be?
Well, I mean, for us, it's huge in a claim situation. If there's a dash cam video of whatever transpired, it cuts the claim process lengthwise, the time it takes them to investigate and research what's going on or what happened. It cuts that time almost in half. I would guess. I mean, we haven't done studies on that,
yes.
but it really does save a lot of the adjuster's time and effort into trying to determine what transpired. And I mean, some insurance companies will even offer some sort of a break on your deductible or something of that nature if you do have that footage.
Right, and it prevents a lawsuit because if you don't have dash cam video, it's your word against theirs, and a lawsuit can happen. So.
Can you give me a scenario of that, of like when a dash cam footage has been beneficial and then how that was used and if it wasn't available? What's the difference?
Well, like if you have a car that cuts you off, they're definitely at fault. They're coming across and they slam on their brakes. You rear-ended them. Most of those cases, you're going to be found at fault. But with dash cam video, you can see clearly that he came over, they cut you off, they slammed on their brakes. There's some fault in that. So it can help you with that situation.
Now, these are relatively inexpensive. Is that right?
They can be. I mean, similar to a lot of other things in technology, there's going to be a variance on quality. And so, yeah, you can get them inexpensive. You can also get ones that are pretty pricey, and they're probably going to have more options, a more clear image, things of that nature.
Yeah, I've seen some online that can detect a crash and will start recording immediately, if you're in that crash. So that way you don't have to have it on the whole time, using the battery, using, I want to say tape, but it's digital.
You know what? People our age will understand.
They'll understand what you mean. I'm curious, maybe you don't know the answer to this. Are there any differences when it comes to dash cams for trucks compared to four-wheelers?
I don't know that there's a huge difference. I mean, the end result is they're just going to be monitoring what's going on in front of you. I mean, some of them, and I think this can go personal or commercial auto as well, some of them can record inside the vehicle as well as in front of the vehicle. And that's a whole other ball of wax because, if you have a driver, you can't just record inside the cab without letting anyone know.
Yeah.
So I don't know that there's a big difference in the type of dash cam. I would imagine that you'd probably want one that's a little better quality in a semi-truck. I mean, we know that your range of vision isn't the same, in a semi versus a car.
Yeah, if the other person leaves, you want to be able to see their tag number, their license plate. Yeah. So the better one you have.
Better quality.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if a driver does have a dash cam, what does OOIDA offer that's different than if they didn't?
Our insurance, if you do have a dash cam, they will take $500 off of your deductible, whether at fault or not at fault. If you have that video, like Trina said earlier, it helps reduce the time of the claim. So it's going to help cut your deductible down.
Yeah, even if you're at fault. Because when we first started offering that, a lot of us thought, is that only if it's not your fault, if it's a not at fault incident? And they said, no, even if it's at fault, it still cuts down on the time invested in researching the claim. So either way, it helps them get through the process faster. And, other insurance companies, I'm sure, offer some sort of a perk like that. Also, policies are subject to change. So if it's something that you inquire about, I would inquire about it maybe at your renewal each year, see if that's still the case. Because, as with anything, sometimes the wording changes or the perk changes or benefit changes. And every insurance company is different anyway, so...
Are there certain people you recommend to get a dash cam, like when it comes to hired drivers?
I mean, if you're going to have the video on the inside, it can help you with a hired driver because it can be a teachable moment. Are they distracted driving? Or, you can see the way they're handling themselves in situations. But to me, you walk a fine line there of being able to record inside. Is that an invasion of privacy?
I was just going to say it could also be a huge invasion of privacy.
Yeah.
And especially with drivers, they spend so much time in the truck behind the wheel. Even some of their downtime is in the cab. I would say a lot of it at times. And so, it's something I would definitely be transparent about if you have a driver. Let them make that choice. Maybe come to some sort of a compromise. To me, it's such a fine line anyway. It's like others having access to our phone data. Sometimes it really can prevent a terrible situation. Or like Lisa said, it could be a teachable moment for something. But
yeah, it's kind of a tough.
It kind of gives me.
I don't think I'd want to be filmed behind the wheel.
No, I do too much karaoke in my
Same.
car.
Same.
No one needs to hear that.
There are probably some companies that require it. I would imagine they don't have a choice. You want a job, you're being recorded.
Yeah.
I think the biggest part, though, is to just make sure everyone knows, because what you certainly don't want to do is have it recording inside the cab and then the person driving doesn't know. I mean, that's going to be cause for a huge issue, I would think.
Yeah. I wanted to bring up a scenario that I recently saw on social media and I'm going to try to describe this video. So there was a car that was brake checked. They were able to stop. They got into the other lane. The car in front of them that brake checked them followed them into the other lane, got in front of them again, put their car in reverse, and hit them, the front of their car from the behind. Now, hopefully that makes sense.
They just backed into him.
They
stopped and backed into him.
Yes, long story short. Now, if there wasn't dash cam footage of this, I don't think anyone would have believed what they saw. Not sure. I'm assuming this was insurance fraud. But how often do we see those types of scenarios play out when it comes to trucks, and how beneficial would a dash cam be in those situations?
Well, I'd say probably every scenario, because most people have an accident, think it's not their fault.
Right, right.
In that situation, obviously, it wasn't that person's fault. They were backed into. But I'd say, I don't know if that happens super often.
Right. Well, also, if it were to happen, who knows? Because if you don't have the footage and you can't prove it, then it's just a he said, she said.
Yeah.
And
saying
so
it
it's
out
hard.
loud is
one
thing, but somebody believing you is another.
Well, and we have heard of a plethora of scenarios where someone gets cut off and then brake checked. I mean, that happens. Commercial auto, personal auto, it happens to people all the time.
And not even trying to get hit, just mad and
sometimes it's just road ragey.
Right.
And so having the dash cam footage in any of those scenarios is going to be beneficial, and it's going to further prove your side of the story. Because when we hear that stuff, and I would imagine we hear it as agents when we're getting details. Maybe there's an accident that shows up on your driving record, and we get these details. But I can only imagine how often, a claims office hears those stories. And if it's hard to prove, it's hard to, it's almost impossible sometimes.
Yep.
So, that's why we can't emphasize enough how important these are. In fact, I feel like I almost had that situation you were talking about over the weekend, because I was driving into town and someone was just stopped in the middle of the road, and I thought, are they going to back into me? And that did not happen. But in my head, I'm like, man, we talk so much about dash cams, and I don't have one, and I think that's going to change.
Yeah.
I got a little bit too
good
big
investment.
Yeah.
On the comments on that video, I mean, everyone said if this isn't reason to go get a dash cam, I don't know what is. And a lot of people said that they were going to get them. I'm curious, of course, dash cams, is there cameras for around the truck? I know cargo theft obviously is a huge issue. Have you heard of that at all?
I've been wondering about that, actually, and I would imagine so.
Yeah, they would have to have something. But to me, is it specific for trucks, or is it just like what you put around your house or something?
Like
right.
Right, yeah, something like that. I mean, it would be a great thing. I've seen on cars where you have a front view and also a rear view. Like it'll start out showing, the car coming up behind you, coming in, cutting you off, because then they see the front. Obviously, you can't do that in a truck because you have a trailer in the way, but I'm assume that there's something out there that they could.
Yeah, with technology the way it is, I would imagine so, because we all know accidents don't just start right in front of you.
Yeah.
Sometimes it starts off to the side of the vehicle or behind the vehicle. And so logically, I would think there would have to be something like that.
Yeah.
And, we haven't really discussed this amongst ourselves, but we've all seen the videos on social media of other things transpiring. So maybe you're not involved in the accident, but, we've seen people post videos of wild things that have happened in front of them going down the road. So, I would even venture to say if you have a dash cam and you can offer that footage for someone else's benefit, like, hey, I was just minding my business and all this happened in front of me, it would be the same as getting a witness statement, in my opinion. So, I mean, I think it could help out others as well as yourself.
Especially the cargo thefts.
Yeah.
I mean, they're so rampant right now.
Well, and around the holidays, they get so much worse.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm curious if you haven't, I'm sure your cell phones are now going to show you videos of this, but I've seen some videos of dash cams that have picked up kind of like, I don't want to say ghosts or like dark nights on a, lonely road.
Orbs and lights.
Yeah, kind of like odd things like that. So, I mean, yeah.
Sometimes it's just a reflection of light. That happens in my yard when I try to take photos of lightning. Like there's a light
That's what she tells herself.
Yeah.
That's true. Actually, it is. I do tell myself that. But I mean, I know people have caught really odd scenarios. And if you're out on the road by yourself, people may not believe you.
Right.
It's like saying that car backed into me.
Exactly. You've got the footage.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious, if you do get a dash cam, what should you tell your insurance?
I would say, I'm sure they're going to want some info on it, maybe the make, model, some sort of a serial number. That way they know it's legit, know that you have a good one. I don't even know if it's a good one, if it's what needed, but you have one. And then see what they offer as far as a discount and, deductible lowered or something.
Well, and as we say often, every company's different, so depending on who you're insured with may change what they require. Each company may want to see something different. So again, call them, ask them, ask if they have any kind of perk or benefit for having one, and then ask, like Lisa said, if there's information they need off of that. Some companies may just want to see footage in the event of a claim, and some may want to drill down on the detail.
Do you think we'll see more and more drivers get dash cams?
Oh, I think so for sure, especially as technology gets bigger and better. They're going to be cheaper.
Correct.
And so more people are going to buy them.
It's like you took that thought right out of my head.
Great minds.
All right, ladies, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our thanks to Trina Skywalker and Lisa Waske of OOIDA's Truck Insurance Department. If you have any questions about insurance, you can call 816-229-5791. For Landline Now, I'm Ashley Blackford. We'll be back after this.
Capital Reman, the leader in remanufactured diesel engines and components, has partnered with OOIDA to offer exclusive member benefits. Visit capitalreman.com today to support America's transportation industry and take advantage of your benefits.
Penske owns and operates some of the best-maintained vehicles on the planet. Our used trucks come with a 5-year maintenance report and pre-sale inspection. So if you're in the market for a top-quality pre-owned truck, look no further. Search our inventory today at PenskeUsedTrucks.com.
Since you started, what you've loved about trucking is the freedom. Heading out on your favorite route, a good driving song, and thinking about truck insurance. Well, maybe not that last one. That's why we're here. At OOIDA, we have a full range of truck insurance products, expert advice, and great customer service, helping you get the right coverage for your operation. Go to OOIDA.com, because your job is to drive. Our job is to help with everything else.
Thanks for sticking around. We'll close things out today on Landline Now by taking a quick peek into the scary underworld of artificial intelligence. You may have seen some of the news out there about AI deepfakes. Well, that's just a start. The technology is being used by fraudsters in a number of ways, and joining us to break down how to protect yourself are Aaron Phillips and Tim Storhoff of OOIDA's IT department. Tim, Aaron, good to see you.
Thanks for having us. Absolutely, thank you.
So I'm curious, you actually picked this topic that we're talking about today. What brought it on your radar? Why did you want to talk about it with people out there and the importance of it?
Well, with all the advancements that have been made in the last few months, really, for me personally, more of the visual side of things. Maybe listeners are familiar with the art AI bots that have been made by various companies. And at the beginning, they weren't, it was like, oh, this is cool. It kind of looks like the thing you typed in, and you can kind of see where it's going with it. Now we're really getting to a point where the visuals are quite real looking, even if they're still a little bit wonky in certain areas. And it's not even just pictures. We're getting to the point where videos can be fully generated and look pretty convincing. And so... And even if it's just some cherry-picked examples to make really, really scary-looking stuff, the fact that it's happened so quickly, the exponential growth of it, you can still kind of tell at this point.
It won't be long before you can.
It won't be long before you really can't tell just by looking at it for, you really have to get in there and scrutinize everything.
Yeah, which is scary. I mean, you can have a politician essentially saying whatever you want them to say, and that goes out on social media and confuses a whole bunch of people, and they think this person said this thing when in fact they didn't. There's all sorts of scary scenarios that come from this idea, and as you mentioned there, this has really come on so quickly. It's only been over the past, year, I think, since people even started thinking about AI, and here we are. And as you said, I think the technology is getting better and better very, very quickly. We're kind of focused here on the fraudsters and protecting yourself. And you mentioned there, Aaron, that it can be difficult to tell what's real and what isn't. They're also using this technology, the bad guys out there, they're always going to figure out some way to use it for their benefit.
Yep, exactly.
They're using it in a number of ways already to, basically scam people. Can you talk a little bit about those things, aside from just the videos, which, could be harmful, but there's a whole bunch of other things out there as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So there was an article that came out from Hong Kong, basically talked about how this upper management employee actually got an email asking to transfer, $25 million or something. Yeah, crazy amount from the company to this other company. And he didn't think anything of it because it was just an email. But then later on, there was an actual video chat meeting with several other employees that he knows. And he thought that everything was all good and fine. And okay, well, everyone's...
Transferred the money.
Yep, he transferred the money. But these people were deepfaked. These people were AI deepfake, and the entire meeting was just a sham.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of money.
Mhm.
And obviously,
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking to people out there. They probably don't have $25 million to forward. I
Right,
certainly do not.
right.
And if you do, great for you. Good job. But that's a thing that I think people, it's easy to, kind of push off an email that you get as junk. You can usually maybe kind of figure out what's what there. But if you're talking about a video phone call or a phone call in general, and I know that they are taking people's voices, like family members, and calling people and fooling them. I guess the question is, if you can fool somebody into sending $25 million out using that technology, folks like us, that they're just asking for whatever, it would be easy to be fake. What can we do? What should we be looking for when it comes to these things, especially people who are getting, truck drivers who are getting phone calls and emails from a whole bunch of people claiming to be a bunch of people? What can they do? What should they be looking out for?
Just verifying everything possible with people
Absolutely.
Just reputation, where we seem to be going back to a point where like in-person reputation things are very, very much more important than online, because online can be faked. So it's better to be, really look at the situation. Oftentimes fraudsters will have sort of an artificial sense of urgency that they'll try and create, where they like, you got to do this now. You got to do this now. It's important. Your
Trying to scare you.
Your livelihood's on the line. We'll sue you. You'll go to jail. Whatever. And so it's just try to get the picture of, does this actually add up? Does this make sense? Just like from a real life perspective, is this a thing that would actually happen? Does this seem a little bit insane? And if it does, talk to people and sort of bounce it off them. Does this make sense to you? Have you heard of this? Does this, ring any bells?
That's right.
Yeah, take a beat, essentially, if that's the case.
Yeah, just back off, reassess.
And especially if they're asking for money. I mean, I think that should be the first tip there.
And I'd just like to add to that also that, voices obviously can be faked.
Yeah, you can get an app to clone your voice now.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And the best way is to either end that phone call and call your loved one, directly, or have a safe word or a warning word that only you and your group or your family know.
That's smart.
Yeah.
If you're a business, having set procedures with employees is important.
We were talking before just about the potential of AI, and there's a lot of potential. We should emphasize that this has the potential to do a lot of good. But again, anytime you've got a new technology or a new thing out there, the potential for bad actors to do something bad grows as well.
Yes.
And I think that's a big concern here, because we don't know. This is truly uncharted territory. And I know regulators are kind of looking at this just from your perspective, because I know you all follow this obviously pretty closely. Are we going to get to a point where, the government or some entity actually does some oversight of this technology? Because we saw with social media how they just kind of let them do whatever they wanted. And we see where we're at now with, again, great things about social media, also some really bad things.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
AI has the potential to just blow that out of the water. I mean, just from your perspective, do you see any possibility for any kind of regulation or oversight of AI as we move forward here? Should that even be done, do you think?
I mean, I think we'll have to. We're already seeing some, especially with social media, video platforms like YouTube and TikTok. They already have sort of self-assignment. If you have a video that's using generative AI, you can tag it as that, and obviously that's assuming that you're going to be good and do things the proper way. But the idea is, if you have enough honest people tagging their videos properly, then it can be training data for another AI to become the AI detection bot, basically, and be able to automatically flag future videos that are not put up honestly.
So we're depending on the social media companies to kind of police themselves here, which is, I think, what got us into the mess with social media companies in the first place. But yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating topic. Final advice here as we wrap things up really quick is just to, again, just verify, be very careful because this new stuff does look very real.
Yeah,
and it's only going to look even more real.
And it's so accessible. Like I could do this myself.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that, though.
Yeah, don't do that, though.
All right, Aaron. Hey, Tim, always a great conversation when we have you. We really do appreciate it, and we will talk to you again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And that's our show for today. We've got another one coming tomorrow, but for news and analysis from the trucking industry in the meantime, head on over to landline.media for all the latest. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. If you want more content, go to landline.media to get updated news, information, and archived editions of our show. Once again, that's landline.media.
I'm a dad,
a son,
a husband,
wife,
I'm a writer,
photographer.
I farm.
I'm a veteran.
I love old cars, fishing,
My kids.
chrome,
And I am
a professional truck driver.
And together we are OOIDA.
OOIDA was founded by truckers to stand up and speak on behalf of truckers. We've done that by combining the individual voices of our members into a single, powerful voice. Protecting your interests, defending your rights.
Join us.
Make your voice heard. Join OOIDA, the Owner-Operator Independent Drivers Association. Call 1-800-444-5791 or visit OOIDA.com.